Hello everyone, and welcome to Season 6, Episode 38 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host, Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches of 2021 with match number 13 on our list, which is the New Japan Cup Tournament second round match between Will Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr. from the New Japan Cup 2021 Night 8 event held on March the 14th of 2021. So I had joked in some previous videos that it took so long for New Japan matches, to come into our countdown. Normally they'd be peppered throughout if you were looking at a year-end list, but now they are coming in hot and heavy. And like with the Shingo and Ishii match that I discussed the other day, these two, Ospreay and Sabre, are one of the most reliable pairings in all of wrestling. You can put these two together on any show at any time of the year and you are guaranteed an excellent match. But the thing that I really like about these two is they don't always just rest on their laurels and have the same match over and over and over again, which is something, when you get a lot of these historic pairings, throughout wrestling history, you'll see them kind of do the same old. But these guys, they throw new twists and turns in every single match they do. Every single match they do builds off a previous one. But what I like about their matches, and it's a constant theme, if you watch from the first match they had, in Rev Pro, all the way through to their match in the US for Evolve, to, their work, into Progress and now into New Japan, is that every match they up the intensity more and more and more. And they establish this grudge between the two of them that, what starts out as, a really respectful pairing, in a series of matches has turned into, in a way, almost a technical blood feud, if you want to consider that, because, these guys, they don't brawl or, use weapons against each other or anything like that, that you would see in your normal big-time blood feud grudge match, but they just get more and more brutal with the holds that they do, and, the tearing and ripping and clawing at each other and the strikes, and especially the trash talk. It escalates in each match, and this one, up until that point, was the most it had ever bled through. These guys had two excellent matches in 2020, right before the pandemic. They had a great match in New Japan. They followed it up with an even better match in Rev Pro. And in my opinion, up until, this match they had in March of 2021, this was their magnum opus. It was the best match they had yet. Which is really, really saying a lot. And especially, the Rev Pro match that made the Season 1 countdown for the top 50 of 2020, that was a big-time title match that had been built to. And here, I don't want to say this is a throwaway match, but it's the second round of a big, long tournament. It really doesn't need to be as good as it is. But this match is incredible. Like I said, they really establish, this is a tournament match. Both of these guys, they have this, competitive rivalry, this underlying grudge against each other. They had the big title match the year before. Both have been itching, to get back against each other. And they with it being this tournament though, both of these guys know that they have a lot of matches in store for them if they want to win the tournament, which ultimately, as we discussed in a previous video, Will Ospreay wins. So, they really want to finish quick, and that's apparent as they charge right from the bell. Ospreay throws a big wild drop kick. He goes for the Os Cutter to try to put this way a match, instantly. And he gets countered into Zack Sabre Jr.'s European clutch, which has been, established in New Japan, especially as being a legitimate finishing maneuver. And he gets such a close two off of it. I'm talking last second kick out here. That it's a really amazing start to this match. That naturally just brings you in right away, and Ospreay is so good to after he kicks out, he just kind of boots Sabre off of him, and he's checking with the referee to make sure it was only a 2 count and that this match is still going on and that he hasn't lost. And it's really good little kind of character bits that make the work they do even better. And from there, Ospreay really tries to slow it down. Zack Sabre Jr., is an incredible professional wrestler. And, you know, if you've seen his matches, you know just how he can torment his opponents by just stretching and twisting, you know, every limb imaginable. And he does that to Ospreay here. He twists the ankle, he wrenches the arm, he stomps on the arm, he bends the arm at weird, perverse angles. You know, Ospreay is able to have counters for almost everything, though. He resortes out of an arm wringer, and he cartwheels out of, you know, the neck snap thing Sabre does, where he wraps his legs around the opponent's, you know, neck and then twists. In this match, it's funny because, like, I don't really know how else to put it, but it's basically like two pricks in a fight where, like, both of these guys are, like, so sleazy and unlikable to each other, but because they're doing it to each other, it becomes great. Like, you almost don't have a person to root for, and the match is kind of heel in a way, but it's just wonderful to see who is the biggest bastard. Ospreay is so arrogant. There's a point where he just keeps kicking Sabre out of the ring. It's so disrespectful. Sabre is so great too at just goading Will Ospreay throughout the match to throw chops with this bad arm that he's worked. And, like, he does, like, all of these little, like, shoulder nudges to, like, bait Ospreay into throwing these chops. He gets his chest completely blistered up from them, but it's worth it because he can absorb the pain, and, you know, Ospreay just damages his own arm, which ultimately Sabre knows is going to be his key to victory. And Ospreay, you know, not to be outdone, is so great too, with just, like, paintbrushing slaps and quad kicks and, you know, shitty little head kicks, you know, that are just disrespectful in the whole match. They're talking trash to each other, and you really get the impression that these are two punks that just don't like each other. And it makes for such a compelling watch. The counters in this match are so amazingly fluid. They go in and out of all of the holds, but what I love, and this is where I talk about the escalation, you know, between the matches that these guys have, is in between all of these amazing, you know, fluid counters, there's all of these brutal little moments where one guy can't get the advantage, so he just does something just absolutely brutal. You know, Ospreay with, like, these vicious head stomps to Sabre in between exchanges, and Sabre, you know, like, he ties up Ospreay's arm between his legs and just drops down to his knees. And it's funny, like, I'll let you in on how I do these videos, is when I, you know, watch the matches that I know are potentially going to make the countdown. And, you know, I've mentioned it several times, but when I watched a lot, I was like 107 matches to come up with, you know, my top 50 that I thought could reasonably make this countdown. But when I watch the matches to try to figure out the ranking for them, I take notes, and I basically do like a play-by-play note on it, and I write down, like, all of the, you know, the spots and the sequences and the story that's trying to be told. And then from there, you know, I review that, and then I kind of take out my key bullet points, and I make, you know, a little note page so that when I do these videos, I know what to reference in case I get lost. And when I was, you know, doing my bullet form notes for this match, like, I kept seeing the same words over and over in my play-by-play notes, like grotesque, brutal, disgusting. Like, I kept seeing these words, you know, when talking about, like, all of these submissions that Sabre would do, and, like, all of these little brutal things that these guys were doing to each other in between their transitions. And I thought it was funny and really summed up, you know, what this match has. And it's funny because in one sense you get, like, this beautiful World of Sport style technical wrestling, and Ospreay is so athletically gifted, and it's these great sequences, but you also get these, like, Fit Finlay versus William Regal, like, just brutal little things too. And it creates this amazing match that there's nobody out there that's doing the same type of match that these guys are, in my opinion. Zack Sabre Jr. does one of the coolest spots imaginable in this match, where he is so precise with his submission holds, right? Like, he'll tie you up, you know, 10 ways from Sunday. But there's this moment in the match where he just grabs this side headlock, and it's the crappiest side headlock. It's so nonchalant. He's barely got it on, And like when he first does it, you're kind of like, okay, like that doesn't seem like Zack Sabre. But then you see the long game from it. So, you know, Ospreay easily shoves him out of this side headlock and, you know, leapfrogs him and goes to do a drop down. Like it's, you know, this international sequence that you see in so many matches, right? It's so commonplace, and it's, you know, wrestlers can do it in their sleep. But when Ospreay comes down for the drop down, Sabre immediately tries to grab him in the Cobra Twist, which is a submission move that he's beaten Ospreay with on multiple times. So Ospreay really fears it and like immediately gets to the ropes. But it all ties into that headlock, and it's so genius where like Zack Sabre Jr., you know, put on this crappy headlock for Ospreay to counter it so that he can get in a better, you know, advantageous position to grab his real submission move that he knows he can finish the match with. It is just mind-blowing, you know, human chess. It's everything that is amazing to watch in pro wrestling. And I loved it. It's so great because it's that thing that kind of makes you, you know, raise your eyebrow at first, but then you're like, of course it makes sense. You know, a wrestling genius that Zack Sabre Jr. is. There's like just, you know, I've said the word brutal already so many times in this video, but like Sabre hits like this kick to the face on Ospreay that is just disgusting. He kicks out his arm when Ospreay tries to grab the ropes to block an Irish whip. It's so forceful, so vicious. Ospreay, you know, he's so good too, where, you know, Sabre has to find these creative ways to hit his signature offense. Ospreay has to do the same. So one of Ospreay's big moves that he normally uses is like a turnaround point in the match. I call it the afterburner because that's what Ruckus called it. He was the first guy I've ever seen do it. Shout out Ruckus. But it's like the handspring off the ropes, like Tajiri style, like into basically like a twisting kick sort of thing. So Ospreay goes for it and Sabre counters it. So when he goes for it again, he does like all of this misdirection off of it so that Sabre has no way of knowing which way Ospreay's going before he's able to hit it. And again, it's just so cool and so different and shows, you know, how well these guys know each other and how they have to go to a different level and play those head games in that human chess game. And again, it makes for just such a wonderful, you know, watch for you to experience as a fan. And, you know, Ospreay hits that move and it allows him to buy time and create space because, you know, Sabre has been dismantling his arm throughout this match. We kind of get the play in and the tie in to all of their previous matches. So Sabre grabs a rear naked choke, and there's this moment I love where Ospreay just hulks, you know, Sabre up onto his shoulders, walks him over to the corner, and like stoically like puts him tied up in the corner, like in the position for the cheeky Nando's kick. And I love that so much because normally Ospreay uses that as like a kind of a counter out of nowhere, right? He gets the head tucked in the buckles, he gets the super kick, and he does it as like a counter when somebody's going for a superplex or whatever. But here, like, he purposely, with intent, you know, used his power and his muscle to carry Sabre over and put him into that position. And again, just a really cool twist on signature offense that both of these guys normally do. Ospreay gets the Oz Cutter for 2. I can't even get into the counter sequences they do in this match because it is so rapid fire and they are in and out of so many different positions and moves that like I can't even write it all down. It's enough to make your head spin watching it, but again, it's so cool. So, you know, we get the kick out of the Oz Cutter. We get Zack gets like the Zack driver out of nowhere, his Michinoku driver for 2. So we do get some big, you know, dramatic near falls, which makes sense because these guys have wrestled each other so many times and have absorbed each other's, you know, offense so many times. We get this great callback to the Rev Pro match where Sabre grabs a cross arm breaker, and in that match, Ospreay like hulks him up, climbs up to the very top rope, and hits this super bomb to break it. So they tease that here, but Sabre like holds on and counters it into like a big cross arm breaker from the top rope. Some point here, Ospreay gets his nose broken, so we get, you know, this blood that just adds to the match. And, you know, would be a great story that Ospreay would carry out throughout the rest of the tournament. Not great for him. Nobody wants to get a broken nose, but again, it, you know, creates more compelling storytelling throughout the matches. You know, I referenced that in his finals match with Shingo. Zack gets like this crazy just arm submission where he ties up like every point of Ospreay's arms imaginable, but Ospreay's able to get his foot on the rope because he's got, one loose limb. Something that I really love about this match too is Ospreay hits all of these big super kicks throughout it, but there's points where like Sabre catches all of these kicks. And so many times you see guys, like especially in Young Bucks matches, and I love the Young Bucks, don't get me wrong, but they throw all these super kicks, they do these super kick parties, and guys just stand there and take them and absorb these kicks, and there's no effort put in to try to stop or block these super kicks. And in this match, Sabre successfully blocks a couple of them, but every time he doesn't, he's still putting those hands up and trying to catch that foot coming in from Ospreay, even though he's eating, the sole of the foot to the face. And again, it's just these little things that make it seem more legitimate. Of course, you're going to try to avoid getting hit, if you can help it. You may still get hit, but you're going to put the effort there. So again, just these little nuances that set this match apart from so many others. The finish too is again a great callback. Ospreay goes for the Oscutter off the top rope, which he was able to successfully use to win the Rev Pro title. Sabre this time counters it into a rear naked choke. He makes potentially a mistake. He abandons the choke and tries to transition it into another Zack driver. Sabre is, mentored by Minoru Suzuki. That's a Suzuki staple, the rear naked, convert it into the Gotch style pile driver. But Ospreay is able to slip out the back, hit a big roaring forearm to the back of the head, a move that he would use throughout the tournament to great effect. It's enough to rattle Sabre, set him up where Ospreay can hit the Stormbreaker. Nobody's kicking out of that thing, and it's enough to get him the 3 and move on to ultimately win the tournament. This is a match that is completely surpasses, what the quality of it should be, given that it, like I said, it's just a second round match in a tournament. Both of these guys wrestle this match like it is the biggest match of their lives. It is so good. It doesn't go super long. It's full of just some of the coolest sequences and moves, and like I said, these small little things that you will ever see in a pro wrestling match. I feel like it really got lost in the shuffle of the year. I remember, thinking it was great. Put it on my, call it a short list, but it's quite long list of what I thought could potentially make my top 50. But in watching it again and comparing it to other matches throughout the year, it just completely blew me away. You can watch this match, of course, on New Japan World. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so that you never miss a video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. And please join me again next time as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.